All right, and welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. Easter has come and gone, but the season of forgiveness continues on right here in this episode of the program where we reveal our top second chance fantasy football breakouts. I'm your host, Seth Wilcock, joined by, once again, Eric Romoff and Steve Lawson. And before we get into one player that we're all ready to forgive this season, I have to ask, boys, what is the best comeback story in all of sports or entertainment history? I would argue not just because it's Masters Week and we got a lot of stuff going over there. On the 19th hole, Tiger Woods winning the 2019 Masters, his fifth green jacket, 15th major title, and his first since 2008 at the age of 43. Steve, what about you? Best comeback of all time?
I'm going to go Robert Downey Jr. With his return as Iron Man. He was uninsurable on the movie. He was such a train wreck with his past, and he wound up becoming the godfather of the MCU. So that has to be, the most lucrative comeback of all time, created the number one franchise of all time. And he was at the forefront of it. And it was really because Jon Favreau pounded the table and said, it has to be Robert Downey Jr. I won't do it without him. And here we are, 20 some odd years later, and the MCU is what it is. So I'd go with him.
Yeah, shout out RDJ, man. Definitely one for the storybooks there. Eric, what about you? Best comeback story of all time?
Man, Tiger in 2019 was certainly where my mind went immediately. It's one of those few sports moments where you just absolutely remember where you are. In absence of being able to repeat that, I'll go prisoner of the moment. I thought it was pretty cool that Grandpa Phil Rivers dusted it off last year and decided to forego his ticket to the NFL Hall of Fame and go out there and spin it for a few more games.
Yeah, Uncle Phil, absolutely there. I'm surprised no one said Sam Darnold. I thought that might be a popular one, but let us know down in the comments. Best comeback story all time, entertainment, sports. We want to hear from you. And also a quick reminder before we jump in, folks, that we have the new sub channel available right now. It is youtube.com/IIBT podcast. That's where you can go ahead and subscribe for all the NFL football content all the time, whether that's fantasy football or NFL betting purposes. And also just give this video a quick thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. We would really, really appreciate that. And guys, let's go ahead and jump right into things here with a little headline hijinks. All right, we've got our top three players that we're forgiving this season. The comeback is on, and Eric, I'm throwing it over to you first. Who are you letting bygones be bygones with in 2026?
Bygones be bygones is not a strength of mine. I'm a bit of one to hold a grudge, and especially when a player has burned me, and nobody burnt me quite as much as my guy Josh Downs last year. I absolutely bought into the hype. I was very excited about the direction that the arrow was pointing and his productivity playing with some Jags throughout the course of his young career. Thought that it would be moving in the right direction with Daniel Jones coming in. And now, even though he only put up 560 some odd yards, I'm ready to be hurt again, right? Specifically with the exit of Michael Pittman and what that opens up over the short and intermediate part of the field. I think we could be looking at the Josh Downs breakout season that we were all hoping for last year coming into fruition in 2026, namely because you look around the circumstance for this Colts passing game in particular, specifically with Michael Pittman heading out the door and now vacating one of the highest target totals in all of free agency this NFL offseason. The Colts not having a first-round pick because they went all in to acquire Sauce Gardner last year. I just don't think it's very likely that there are going to be any other notable names that are competing for targets in this passing game. And so now it's really Josh Downs and Tyler Warren as the 1 and 1A, with Alec Pierce likely to get another, 60, 65 receptions,
Easy.
increasing his reception total by a good 20% from last year, I think is a pretty reasonable projection. So we're looking at Josh Downs, fitting into that reliable kind of safety blanket role. I think we see him surpass well over 100 targets as he was doing and on a trajectory to surpass in the early part of his young career rather. And now, we're looking at a circumstance where he could readily be the Colts' leading wide receiver in targets and in receiving yards, and shows the ability to absolutely explode with the ball in his hands, an elite separator. His splits on and off the field with Michael Pittman are some of the biggest jumps that you'll find up and down this roster. So the opportunity is absolutely there for Josh Downs. And then you read the tea leaves coming out of the NFL owners meeting. I believe freaking great were the words of Chris Ballard when asked about his thoughts on Josh Downs. So I think the team is very much so going to see what they have in this young man. And this will be the year to get him on the cheap and ultimately to reap that benefit of doing so.
Eric is Downs to ride. Josh drives managers to a title. And I'm 100% on board with you about most of what you just said, Eric. Like, I was someone last season who I was off of Joshua Downs primarily because Tyler Warren was coming in. I knew he was going to have a lot of that underneath work. I think now that Pittman's out of the picture, it will be Josh Downs likely on the field in 2 wide receiver sets, playing that flanker role across from Alec Pierce, who will be in that X, unless they bring in someone who's going to play that outside in the draft, which they could still do with a day 2 pick potentially. I will say, though, I think the one thing I would argue, Steve, is I still believe Alec Pierce is the number 1 target among these wide receivers, removing Tyler Warren from the occasion. I think not only will he see substantially more targets, but I also know he's getting those high value, high leverage targets rather than, some of the more shorter intermediate stuff that we're going to see Josh Downs. But I do think Alec Pierce takes that next step. They paid him like he's a 1. I think he will be the 1 for the Colts in their receiving core. Where do you come down on Josh Downs? Are you willing to get back invested at current price?
I think so. I mean, I don't see Alec Pierce as a 1. That's the issue, is they paid him like a 1, but that doesn't mean he's a 1. That's just, they needed to keep him. They didn't want to let him walk. They didn't want him to end up somewhere else. So they paid him too much money, which good for him, right? Like, that's great for him. Yeah. Happy when guys get their bag. But Josh Downs, with Daniel Jones coming off a torn ACL, I think, if I remember correctly, or is he an Achilles? He's an Achilles. Yeah. So he's going to want to get that ball out of his hands quickly. And this offense is really predicated on kind of dink and dunk, like chip, and then bomb. And so that's where Alec Pierce is really going to still feast. And he'll work a little bit more of that deep intermediate that Michael Pittman vacated. But I do see Josh Downs being more of the consistent player week to week. I still think he's going to be the guy that, like, if you need a flex or a wide receiver 2, even, he's the guy that's going to be a little more comfy. Whereas Alec Pierce is going to have the bigger weeks, but also the worse weeks. So you're going to kind of get both out of these guys. I think Downs is the safer pick, kind of a Wan'Dale Robinson to like a Darius Slayton kind of thing.
114 overall right now in the Fantasy Pros ADP, wide receiver 48. So certainly coming out of value. Couple would you rather's here, gentlemen. Josh Downs or Jaden Reed?
Josh Downs.
Yep, I agree. Jaden Higgins or Josh Downs?
Higgins.
Downs. Okay. You said, Steve, you're Higgins on that one?
Yeah, I'm Higgins.
Okay. What about Xavier Worthy?
Downs.
Josh Downs.
I think I would go Worthy in that one, but I'm high on Worthy. Khalil Shakir?
Downs.
Okay, line probably drawn here. Parker Washington. Okay. So I think we're all a little bit higher than consensus is, honestly, on Josh Downs, despite what we maybe all think of Alec Pierce. Steve, let's go to you. Who are you willing to forgive, and what is the headline?
Yeah, it's glory be to Godwin. It felt appropriate coming off of Easter to show a little glory to the man down south. Chris Godwin is now the de facto number 1 wide receiver in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans has vacated the premises. He is now a San Francisco 49er, reminiscent of late career Randy Moss, where he's just going to be an old man in those ugly uniforms up there in the Bay. But Chris Godwin, coming off of a pretty brutal injury last year, didn't quite look himself until as the season went on and it got real late, and then he started to figure it out. But that was an injury that was always going to need another season to really kind of go away, and you're going to get Chris Godwin back. And now he's 30, 29, 30 years old, so he's still fairly young. And I do expect this Tampa Bay team to be pretty abysmal defensively. So I do imagine this is going to be a pass-heavy scheme, especially where the line isn't looking great on the run blocking side of things. Bucky Irving certainly crashed down to earth from his meteoric rise as a rookie. I don't see the running game being a strength by any means on this team. And I think they're going to use Chris Godwin to move the chains as he does. He's going to be kind of a mix of an X and a slot like receiver with Igbuka kind of taking the Y position and being that over the top deep ball kind of guy. They didn't bring in a ton of competition for targets. Cade Otton is still there and just as kind of useless as he has been. I anticipate Chris Godwin to see potentially 130, 140, maybe 150 targets this season and be a pretty mega player in the fantasy space.
Eric, Chris Godwin, just from an injury lens, scares me to the point where I don't mind investing in him at his current price tag. However, I'm of the mindset I'd almost rather draft him, see if I can get a couple good weeks out of him, then maybe flip him before a injury or a switch happens and we get some more of these younger guys involved. Where do you come down on Chris Godwin as it currently stands?
A little bit closer to your side of the fence, right? I share those injury concerns, not only for him as we're looking at back-to-back seasons where he hasn't been able to be out there for double-digit games, right? But also for Baker Mayfield, who is no enemy of contact. He's willing to put his body on the line and inevitably continues to get dinged up over the course of the season. And we see his trajectory take a pretty clear downturn on the second half of the year, right? Where I guess what makes me feel best about this is while I would like to get in early and capitalize on the sell high opportunity, if you can, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, right? I think Steve still makes a cogent case as to why Godwin is a value on the whole. And so that's a nice consolation prize if you can't ultimately sell high. I do think that, if we're playing out the positive side of the equation, if Godwin's out there, he's going to be the leading target getter for Tampa Bay. I do think that he'll get those high leverage, third down, red zone type of targets that tend to lead to fantasy points. So, if the downside is, you maybe miss a game or two, but you're able to hold on to a valuable asset for the whole of the season, that's perfectly fine. But I do think that, plan A, if you will, would be flipping him at a high value point, 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season.
I think a lot of your stance on Chris Godwin will come down to two things. What do you think of Emeka Egbuka? Will he be the one playing that extra role, or will it be Godwin? And then also, was Godwin's last season purely and his lack of efficiency because of the injury? You look at fantasy points per target, 65th at 1.63. That's god awful. You look at the fantasy points per route run, 0.33. That's 63rd. Also god awful. Wasn't really getting much separation, whether it was against zone or man coverage either. So I guess that is the case you have to make. Chris Godwin, though, is the more, going later, right? Wide receiver 31 right now, 67 overall compared to Emeka, who really is still maintaining a pretty high ADP despite the overall, I would say, downturn in his production late last season. So it's whether you want to pay that price for Godwin or whether you pay up a little bit more, about a round difference here between them. Emeka Egbuka, 53 overall right now in the ECR, wide receiver 26. I'm on the Egbuka camp. I'd rather pay up a little bit to get him. I have seen an ADP for best balls, though. He is going around that 3-4 turn. Would you guys rather like take the shot on Emeka or take the discount on Godwin? Steve, certainly sounds like you're in the Godwin standpoint, and you also think maybe that lack of efficiency was due to both him and Baker being injured.
Yeah, I think injury was obviously hindering him last season. Like I said, that was an injury that was always going to take a full season to get over. Mm-hmm. You need to build that muscle back. He was out there really just collecting reps. That was just rehab essentially last season.
Okay. Eric, Emeka Egbuka at his current price tag, or are you taking a shot on Godwin?
I'm taking the discount. I'd go with Godwin. If we're talking about kind of a round difference in a vacuum, and both these guys were a little bit further down the board, I think you can make a case for Egbuka. But I mean, at that 2-3 turn, like you really need to be able to tap into some consistent upside. And obviously, Egbuka, took off like a rocket into his NFL career, but really only one of those games was some flash some explosive upside. In week 5 he was wide receiver 1 with a 31-point game. Apart from that, he had a 23-pointer, 13, 14, 20, right? Like, certainly nothing to sneeze at, but I'm shooting for more consistent highs at that point in the draft, and would rather get comparable production at the discount with Godwin.
Okay. And before we keep it moving to our final player that we are forgiving here in 2026 fantasy football leagues, I wanted to let everyone know that the easiest way to support the program is to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, and also make sure you're subscribing to the channel. But if you want more exclusive access, you can come over and connect with us in the IBT football family. That is our community where you can get access to chat with our analysts and our viewers. And also you're going to get entry into our memorabilia giveaways for absolutely no cost. If you want to get full access to our betting cards, our touchdown call contest, you can upgrade for $3.99 per month or just $36 for the year. That will also include unlocking all the benefits to our IBT racing family right now, the full picks prediction model and the head-to-head matchup contest. We also have going off right now the IBT entertainment family. Steve's doing his exclusive monthly betting model for the box office and Rotten Tomato projections. We have more giveaways and chats happening over there. Our full entertainment betting cards and the Survivor 50 League happening right now as well, plus the IBT golf family happening. Masters week, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you're going to get our exclusive weekly betting model. You're going to get Jake's full betting card and picks, plus entry into the PGA One and Done contest. So a lot of goodness happening over there right now in dashbetweenmedia.com/chat. Go check it out. Come be a part of the IBT football family and the extended families as well. And gentlemen, we're back. This is it. The chosen one, Ashton Jeanty, he let us down last year. Finished as a lackluster RB16 on a points per game basis, 14.4 last season. However, I'm going back to the well here. We're ready to get hurt again. Ashton Jeanty, 2K26, baby. The good thing about Jeanty last season, though, right? Played in 17 games. 3 of those were top 5 performances, boosting his overall finish to RB11. Not bad, but when you consider that he was a first-round draft pick in most redrafts, a top 6 draft capital in my case, he did not return draft capital, really anything close to it. Much of that to blame, though, in my opinion, is something like I was bought in on Chip Kelly. I thought this guy still had it. This guy needs to go off and retire, hit an island somewhere, man. Also, the quarterback play, Geno Smith, just thought, he had a rocket arm, was always trying to put it in tight windows, did not go his way. And the offensive line also was absolute dog crap last season. That afforded Jeanty the 62nd best run block rating among the position. The silver lining, though, is that when you look at what the 2024 Heisman Trophy winner, or a runner-up, did, I think he passed the eye test, right? He finished with the 7th most yards created as well, with over 1,100. When you watched Jeanty, you could see the skill that was on display, specifically when you switch back his stance, that upright running style that's a bit wonky. But now, here in 2026, we get this upgraded O-line. Offensive tackle Colton Miller, he's back in the fold after really missing most of last year with an injury that he went down with early. And then center Tyler Lindenbaum comes over from Baltimore in free agency. And I've said it before, but I just think Big Lind is the perfect fit for this Clint Kubiak designed offense where you need that athletic center. You don't need a Jason Kelsey type. But you need someone who can pull and get out and move. You also need a high IQ player that's going to help make some checks at the line. I think you factor in Fernando Mendoza as well. And now you have Ashton Jeanty's RB1 ceiling officially unlocked. I'm all the way back in here. ECR ranking of RB720 overall. I'm willing to take him at the 1-2 turn where I did in our mock draft a couple of weeks ago. Eric, are you in on Ashton Jeanty as well? Are you ready to forgive and forget, as they say?
Yeah, absolutely down to ride. Don't have to forgive or forget because I was never drafting him as high as he was going last year. And happiness is a function of expectations, right? If you weren't burned by Jeanty last year, you should feel A-okay bringing him in this year. If for no other reason than last year led the league in opportunity share. 84.3% of opportunities out of that backfield went to Ashton Jeanty, and there isn't really anybody else sniffing around back there that's going to make a defendable case for why that should change very much, right? So volume being king for the running back position, I think that is going to be relatively constant for Ashton Jeanty. And you mentioned some of the key additions to this team, right? With the first overall pick and Fernando Mendoza coming in, they should at least be competent, less of a dumpster fire on offense, right? And significant upgrades to the play caller, to the scheme, to the offensive line, right? Like, this is the year where you should feel pretty comfortable taking him right around that 1-2 turn. And as long as he stays healthy, and the proof of concept that we saw with Clint Kubiak rolls forward into Las Vegas, you're going to be very happy taking him at that price point.
Steve, are you willing to invest in Jeanty at that RB7 price tag, or do you want to wait till that next flight comes, like the Saquons, the Kenneth Walkers, Jeremiah Loves, Derrick Henry? Where are you comfortable at investing with your running back position?
I think I'd rather wait. What I don't expect to hold is the volume. That's what I'm concerned about. We saw that Clint Kubiak doesn't really need a comparable running back to split carries, right? Like, Zach Charbonnet ate into Kenneth Walker far more.
Sharp's a good player, though, man. Yeah. Sharp had day 2 draft capital once upon a time.
Once upon a time,
measurably better than anybody else on the Raiders
for right now, until they get a guy in there. You know what I mean? There could be anybody on the. Zach Charbonnet is not a running back that should have had a 50-50 split with Kenneth Walker. They are not on the same plane. They're not on the same level. When Zach Charbonnet is a free agent, he'll be a late signing, versus Kenneth Walker, who was like one of the first 6 guys signed in free agency. So I worry, and Kubiak has already said that he doesn't want to do bell cow running back. He's openly talked about having a running back by committee. And whether that comes through the draft or free agency or potentially both, I don't expect 84% share for Ashton Jeanty this season. I think we could see it closer to 70, and that alone will torpedo his value at that 1-2 turn. I think he's much more of a 2-3 turn kind of guy, but you're going to have to pay that premium on him, and I think you're going to get hurt again here in 2026.
Well, I appreciate the opinion. Go ahead, Eric.
The funny thing about that fall off, right? Like, dropping from 84 to 70% is a precipitous drop, right? A significant decrease. That would put him where Derrick Henry finished an opportunity share last year as running back 7, right? Like, even if his workload drops significantly, he's still in line to have one of the most robust roles in all of the NFL this year.
Yeah, I do think it drops considerably as well. I think maybe it is closer to that 70 mark, maybe a 65 mark. However, I think with how skilled of a pass catcher he is, unless they're bringing in someone like my boy Eli Heidenrich out of Navy who can catch the ball very, very well, or a Desmond Reed, I think he will be the third down running back, right? So I at least feel good about that. Yeah, we might get some change of pace. Maybe they bring in a thumper, a patient guy like Katron Allen or something like that. I'd be totally cool with that. But I do agree, Steve, that is going to be the big question mark out there right now. Who is going to be that next piece in the backfield? But the Raiders don't have a ton of draft capital, honestly, in the first couple rounds after spending that, 101 on
a ton of holes to fill.
Yeah. So I think it's probably a day 3 pick. We'll see who lands there when we get there in just a couple of weeks. But gentlemen, great stuff on this particular program as always. Really, really appreciate that. We're gonna have another episode coming out here in just a couple of days with some more of these would you rather ADP debates. In the meantime, though, if you could please do us a quick favor and go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and subscribe both here to the IBT podcast sub channel and that IBT main channel, where we've got our full NFL offerings over there, in addition to college football betting, NASCAR betting, PGA betting, and entertainment betting and reviews, all to help you cash more and to enjoy the ride along the way. We'll see you next time right here on the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. Please make sure you guys are checking out all the good work we're doing over at in-betweenmedia.com as well. For my friends, Eric Romoff and Steven Lawson, I'm Seth Woolcock. Take care until next time, y'all. Thank you.